How's it going, boys? What is us back once again for yet another GBF Uni video. This time we have the final episode of this series for this which weapon is good or not. So we have already gone through every single one of them. This is the very last one. This is for Dark. So I guess I should explain again where gacha weapons should not be reduced unless it's really bad. I'll probably mention that you can just reduce it if you want to. Other than that, I'm just really going to go through like the raids first, like the ones in game, like the raids list. So I just go through and see which one's good, and then I'll let you guys know. And then we're just going to the wiki, and then we go each individual one of them, and then we're gonna mention, we're gonna talk about them. Yes. So this is gonna be another long video. Strap in and let's get to it. Magna one for Dark. The fist is the good one. And this one is the good one, okay? But I think for the most part, even the fists these days are not really being used anymore, because a lot of times people play Dark, they always go for premium Magna. Excuse me, which really highly involves using PNS, and PNS are access. So it scales really well with this. But for the most part, you just want to have, yeah, this two is always good. Having multiples of these two is always nice to have. Alright. And then we have Leech, man. Leech! Shit. They're all shit. Leech's weapon is actually fucking poop. They are poop! They're so bad! Alright, then we have Magna 2. Magna 2 for Dark is only good for this thing. This is the only good one. The others are typically freaking meme. This one is like a massive meme. This one used to be good in the beginning when on release or something, but you don't really need that anymore. I mean, this one you can kind of use that as a main hand if you want a harp or whatever, because Dark doesn't really have like a lot of harps though, unless you're talking about 150 Gomun weapon or some shit. This one as well. Cortanas as well used to be really good like in the early days, but now we don't really need items like these anymore, so we can typically just ignore all these too. Alright, moving on, we have Enids. Enids are probably shit as well. It's actually really funny that a lot of Dark stuff is only in Magna 1 and maybe Malice, and then that's it. But yeah, this one is pretty whatever. This one is pretty whatever as well. I think some people do use this, but it's kind of whatever. You can just typically ignore that, to be honest, and I don't think you're really missing out a lot of stuff anyway, so it's fine. And then for Dark, Malice is that Majestas is your farmable garrison stuff, which also gives you extra HP and raw damage here, which is the Majesty thingy. So this one just kind of helps you when it comes to like the higher end raid stuff, especially if you want, obviously when you want to have like you need more HP, and you also want to take lesser damage, you know, as the raid goes on, kind of thing, right? So this is pretty helpful. The other one is Agonize, which is the top tier one. Oops, is it this one? No, not this one. Is it this one? Yes, this one. So Agonize is probably one of the highly sorted out weapon for Dark, just because of the supplemental stuff you get out of this weapon, because a lot of times there's only two ways you go around when it comes to skill supplemental. You know, when you use your when you're using Fidel and using Leech and all that stuff, right? There's only two ways. It's either you go for Agonize or you go for Fidel's weapon. So Agonize is basically the one where you use if you're trying to just like burst and you're not using like double of the same summon kind of thing. So like double primal, for example, that kind of stuff. If you're not really running that kind of shit, Agonize is definitely the way to go, right? But if you're running like double primal, whatever, like double Hades kind of thing, having two Fidel's weapon is probably the way to go. But honestly, I feel like these days Fidel's weapon is quite a waste anyway. Just using Agonize is already more than enough. So just farm this guy. For the dragon weapon. The dragon weapon, Fidel's Spine, is actually pretty good when it comes to like when you're going for Ogi stuff, because this gives you supplemental Ogi, and it's pretty handy. So if you're Oging a lot and your team is highly focused on Ogi, you definitely you will want one of these in your setup. You can probably put 2, but I think 1 is already more than enough because it's kind of hard to fit in your grid anyway. You can also typically use this as like a main hand as well these days. It's a not too bad main hand, to be honest, like for this weapon. Yeah, you can go with that. Alright, we have Ravans, which is Agastya. Honestly, you should ignore this. You should just ignore this. This weapon is pretty bad and the raid sucks. It's such a pain in the ass to do the raid, so you should just ignore this. Yeah. just don't. Do yourself a favor and just don't bother with that shit ever. That's really about it for now. Let's go on to the wiki. So let's just go over one by one. Okay, I think I already mentioned this, so this is kind of whatever. Is this an event weapon? Oh wow, I haven't seen that. Ignore that. I already mentioned all the Magna 2. Okay, so this is a Xeno one. So Xeno Spear is actually really nice as well to use as a main hand, just because you get extra enmity thingy, so it's pretty handy, and then you get extra supplemental as well and uplift, so it's a pretty not too bad main hand to have, so it's pretty nice. So same goes again is for Xeno. Having one of each is very helpful. And then for Melitist weapons is also once again the same thing. You should never ever reduce them. You should always keep them. If you want to combine them, it's fine as well. You don't really lose out a lot if you just keep them separated as well. If that's what you want, is fine. And then yeah, Agonize, I already explained it. This one is Lucius weapon. Yeah, this one is, I mean, it's okay, but no, not really. I think you can just ignore that. If you really want a weapon like this, right, it's just better off you just use like fucking Fidel Spine, man. The one earlier I showed. Yeah, this one you can ignore. This is Freezy's weapon. This one is a shite as well. To be honest, if you want to reduce this, I don't think it's really a bad thing either. It's pretty bad. Yeah, this is an event weapon, right? You can ignore that. You can ignore that as well. Ignore the Atma stuff. Bahamuto. Okay, so Bahamut weapons, you only go for the ones that you, I mean, it's not really that hard to make anyway. But yeah, like Bahamut weapons, you only go for the ones that you are using based on your race anyway. So you just feed based on your race and just use them. You probably get a lot of them anyway. This is an event weapon. Yes, it is. Alright, ignore. This one's Vampy's weapon, I think. Yeah. Still no full limit break yet, huh? You can just ignore that for now. And then this is Grand Shalem's weapon. And this is definitely one of those weapons you definitely would want if you want to go for crit stuff. Because you see, this is a very strong crit mod. And then you get medium majesty as well. So it's pretty good to get extra raw damage and HP as well. So for this one in particular, having 2 of these is definitely the standard. I don't think you really go more than 2, or even run it as 1. You can typically run it as 1 if you have like another weapon to go along with the X stuff or the crit stuff if you so desire. But for the most part, just having 2 of these is already more than enough. You can ignore that. I already mentioned that. Okay, Proving Ground weapons is once again, you just get 1 of each, is fine. And then this one is one of the, I feel like this is one of the okay ones as well, just because you get extra skill cap, and then you can put in whatever awakening you so desire, and then you can just slot it into your grid or whatever if you want to get your skill cap to be higher or whatnot. What's this? Is this an event? Yes, you can ignore that. You can ignore that. And Bahamut, I think I already mentioned. Event, you can ignore. Event, ignore. Vite's weapon is a relatively nice main hand, actually, surprisingly enough. So this one is actually pretty nice because he has Drain and affects all allies. So it's a pretty handy main hand to use in like full auto kind of stuff, or if you want to, like, you know, make use of like using Vampy and Vite in your party or whatever. Like I think I showed it in my previous video. This one is actually pretty good, and plus also you get extra delay out of it. So it's pretty handy, right? Yeah, pretty good main hand weapon. Blood Gang. I think these days, even with Blood Gang being able to put Awakening, I don't think people really use this. there's no reason for you to really use this. It's pretty whatever, honestly. You get like massive big attack, and then you get small, what's that, attack and crit rate. It's kind of whatever, to be honest, so you can just ignore that. Or if you want, just having one of that is already more than enough. Bamun, I think I already mentioned. This one is event, you can ignore. This one, Magna 1, I already explained. Cerberus, this used to be a very highly sorted out weapon back in the day, because you get enmity and you can also get crazy amount of multi-attack, because you know, back then we don't really have like a lot of when it comes to like sources of multi-attack, we don't really have a lot of that. So that's why this used to be a thing back then, but these days this is trash. You can ignore that. Ignore. This is all event weapons. Ignore. So this is the astral weapon. Having one, you just getting it is always a not too bad thing to have, because it's like one of those things that is you get as part of your progress. If you get it, sure. Like maybe in the end game you don't really see much use of it, but that's fine. But I feel like if you're on one of the lower level side of things, having an astral weapon definitely helps out a lot. If you're still lacking in like, if you're feeling your grit and whatnot, you definitely get a lot out of it. This is Cerberus's weapon. Yeah, it's pretty shit. Cortana's fine. This one still has no full limit break. You can ignore. Yeah, ignore. Even ignore. This one is Manimal. Yeah, it's Manimal. You can ignore. This one you can ignore. This one, if you want to do like some HP meme or whatever, because he has like big HP. But yeah, most of the time you can just ignore. This one is Dark Giant's weapon. This one only if you want to go like, if you want to slime or whatever shit, you know, just because that you get crazy amount of this is probably one of the best weapon to have when you're using the Glory Bringer and you want to awaken and then you do plain damage stuff. This is straight up one of the best weapons to do it with. Okay, yeah, so it's only for that. This one you can ignore. Is this an event weapon? Oh wow, I have not seen this in so long. Yeah, you can ignore this. Draconic is once again is one of those things where you will definitely get if you want to get a little bit more sustain, especially when you're going on to the high end raids kind of stuff. And if you think like you're taking too much damage or whatever, having Draconic may actually help you out a lot. You know, it's kind of like the same as like the Guild Wars stuff, right? Because I think there are people actually using Draconic in like the 2 Guild Wars ago, you know, the last Dark Favorite Guild War, especially when people want to full auto stuff, people were doing that. So having this is not really a bad idea if you so desire. Okay. And then for this one is actually pretty good if you're planning to leech a lot. This is a pretty good leeching weapon. Yeah, stupid V's weapon, because you get the extra drop rate. So yeah, it kind of helps if you can get all of the chests. So this is pretty handy. And if you're leeching, Guild War weapon ignore. This one is who? Oh wow. Okay, you can ignore that. Erish Kigel, you can ignore that. Right, so this is the Grand Helmel's weapon. So this is the similar type as what's that? As like the Granblue's axe, Galleon stick, Percival's weapon, those kind of thing. It's very similar to that, but I think a lot of times you can actually make do without even having this weapon for dark. But there are like the super high-end ones. I think they were running like 3 of these, if I recall correctly. You can run with like, I don't know, 1 or 2 of them too if you want to, but at that point I think there's no reason for you to even equip it anyway. It's like at that point it's like you either go all in or you just don't equip it at all. You know what I mean? There's really not much of a difference if you're only running with 1 anyway. Yeah. Okay. Next is, okay, you can ignore that. Fallen Swords. Okay, so for this one. So this one is a little bit tricky. So for Fallen Swords, right, there are some instances where you can actually use this. Where there are also other instances where you don't use this at all. Because it's either you use this or you use Shalim's axe. The one I showed earlier. There's like either one of them. So for this one, sometimes if you want to run, you probably have, if you have 2 of these, it's already good enough. Typically, you don't, I feel like for the most part, right, you can make do without even needing this anyway. If you have Shalim X, I think it's already good enough. But if you're running, say for example, if you're running, going through a raid that you cannot crit, typically this is probably better. So yeah, that's why I say it's like, it's either you run Shalim X or this one. So it's pretty hard to say. Yeah, so it's either like 2 or 3, I think you're good, but for most part 2 is already more enough, because you don't really have like a lot of space these days to put 3 anyway for this one. This one you can ignore, I already explained this. Bahamut I already explained. Ignore. Agastia's weapon you can ignore. This is Yukata Anturia, I think. Yeah, you can ignore as well. This is not like the Christmas version. The Christmas version is much better. Ignore that, ignore this, ignore this, ignore this. This is Tanya's weapon, I think. Yes, you can ignore as well. Event, law, yeah, event. This is Nicholas as well. You can ignore, I think. Yes, you can ignore that. Gisla is, well, we're not in 2019 anymore, unfortunately. Ignore that. This is Beatrix's weapon. I think you can typically ignore as well. Yeah, this is like the old school enmity stuff. It's like if you do not have like the enmity weapon, you can kind of use this, but yeah, Dark doesn't really go enmity anymore these days. This is Sarunan's weapon, I think. Oh no. Wow, this character is so freaking old, dude. So useless. Ignore that. This one is ignore. Yeah, ignore. This is someone. I do not know who. Jasmine. Yes, you can probably ignore this as well. I think you can even reduce this as well if you want to. But medium progression, small HP and debuff resistance, and small attack HP. It looks pretty bad. Hama Anubis is actually a pretty nice main hand to actually have, because you get medium attack and HP, and then you also get this as well. And it's a pretty decent buff as well you get on main hand, plus it's an axe, so it kind of helps out with the whole PNS stuff. Pretty alright. Hollow Sky is the same. It's one of those things where you don't really take notice of too much these days, because not a lot of grid really make use of Hollow Sky weapons anyway. It's one of those things where if you can get it, sure, why not? If you can make use of it, sure. Even if you get it and you can make use of it, I don't think you're really losing out a lot anyway, so it's fine. You don't really have to force your way to get it. It's okay. This is the event weapon you can ignore. This is Bowman's weapon. I think it's decent. Yeah, it's decent, but I think you can ignore for now. Ignore all these. This one I think is Houston's. Yeah, Houston's Dark. You can typically ignore as well. Don't really need to go with that. You can ignore this. This is Cole's weapon, I think. Is this Cole? Yes. You can ignore this as well. It's pretty whatever. This is who? Sarunan? Yes. Ignore. Wow, look at the multi-element one. Yeah, this is probably one of the ones you can reduce as well. It's pretty freaking bad. Okay, ignore this. Opus is self-explanatory. You can ignore this. You can ignore this. You can ignore this. What is this? What is this? Oh. Yeah, you can ignore that for now. You can ignore this. You can ignore this. You can ignore this. You call us all this class weapon and event weapons. You can ignore. Vira's weapon. You can. Yes, you can ignore as well because it's fucking multi. You can probably even reduce this, I think. Yeah, it looks pretty bad. You can just reduce it if you want. Just as already explained, this the Lolly and Wolf or whatever. You can ignore this, and you can also reduce it if you want. It's pretty bad. This one you can ignore. You can ignore. Mikazuki, I don't remember whose is this. Danoa, yes, you can ignore as well. What is this? Is this a Gomun weapon? No, Zahek. It's pretty bad. Okay, you can ignore that too. Ignore that. This is Vasiraga's weapon. You can ignore as well because it's fucking shit. Yeah, you can reduce this if you want. It's pretty bad. Ignore as well. Ignore. Nebuchan. Ignore. Go. Good war character. Ignore. Class weapon. Ignore. This one is Lich's weapon. I already mentioned. Obsidian sword. I think it's yes. You can ignore. Ignore all this. I think this is Dark Cagliostro. Yeah, Halloween. Yeah, you can ignore. That's pretty bad too. There it is. PNS. Yep. So this is the PNS. So a lot of times for this one, this is the very beginning. This is where it all started. That's why we are always labeling it as PNS anyway. Pain and suffering. All this type of weapon, we're always gonna call it as a PNS type of weapon, no matter what, because this is the first one that came out with it. So for this one in particular, you only want 2 of them. There are in some instances that you can run 3, but 2 is the majority of the time is already more than enough. 3 is just for like maybe some particular like burst setup, but you don't really need to run that. Just run. If you get 2, you already have enough. Nia's weapon, if you can get it, is good to have. If you don't have it, it's fine. This one is good because you can have permanent buffs. You have permanent buffs, attack and defense whenever you kill someone. So yeah, it's pretty handy. This one is you can ignore. Parazonium is the one that I mentioned in the previous video, where you can actually it's probably, I would still even say hands down, one of the best main hand weapons you can get as for daggers, because you get multi-attack, you can get echo for everyone as well. And then plus if you're planning to go for cages stuff, you can just go for this one, because I think everyone really just goes for that anyway. That's what I did as well, and it helped out in last Dark Favorite Guild Wars, so there's that. This one I already mentioned it. You can ignore that, ignore this. Dark Magisa, whatever. Yeah, Summer Magisa. You can typically ignore this as well. I don't think you really need that. Predator's weapon, you can probably ignore as well. You don't really need that. This one is whatever. Ignore. Kirin Bow is still I mean, Kirin Bow was okay, but I feel like nowadays with whole PNS and stuff, you don't really run this anymore. You only run this if you do not have PNS, I guess. If you have PNS and you still run this, you're just basically getting like, what, 6% damage cap out of it? Or some shit. I'm not sure how much damage cap you're really getting out. Like, remainder, because you only cap at 20% anyway. Yeah, you don't really use too much of this. This is also another one that you don't really use anymore. It's an alright main hand, but it's kind of whatever nowadays. You know? Yeah, you can. I mean, this is okay. You can clear. MC can clear or whatever. It's alright, but it's a harp. You know, you can just get it if you want. Same goes for the sword as well. It's a pretty decent thing to have. You can reduce the light damage, sure. If you big EX, why not? This one is Jessica's weapon. It's ignore. Militus weapons you can always keep. Remember, don't reduce, just keep. Don't reduce, and you can even combine if you want to. This is Anira's weapon, I think. Yeah, Anira is fire, but it's dark for some reason. It's a dark weapon. It's a dark weapon, but you get only HP. It's so bad. I mean, I don't think you want to reduce yet because no fulfillment break, but still it looks pretty fucking bad though. Ignore that. This is Jiki's weapon, I think. I don't think you really need to use a weapon either. Yep, pretty bad. Ignore that. I do not know who this is. Rosetta. Yep, you can ignore that. Ignore. Ruling pen, I think you can ignore as well though. Yeah, I think you can ignore too. Yeah. I mean, you can kind of use this for, like, you know, earlier I said that if you're lacking in critical, yeah. You know, if you are missing one Shalim X or whatever and you still want to cap crit or some shit in some way, you can typically kind of use this too in some, to a certain degree. Yeah. Oh, and then we have skills of Dominion. So this is one of those things that lets you go with Highlander stuff. But the sad thing is that nowadays, even with like Highlander still being a thing, especially for like game stuff, there's really no reason for you to use this even in the grid anymore. Like the times are moving forward to the part where you don't even need this weapon anymore. Even if you want to run Highlander in for your Earth or whatnot, you can just ignore it, because it's not really giving you that much anyway, because it's, you know, this cap kind of shares with like the same shit anyway, so it doesn't really matter too much. This is you also share, I think. Yeah, ignore. Don't remember what this is. Oh, Dark Elbows weapon. Yeah, you can ignore that. Event weapon you can ignore. Seraphic, you either get it or you don't use it. You know, it's either this or Ultima. It's really up to you. This is the event weapon you can ignore. This one ignore. And then this is the our current weapon. You use it, you get it, and use it in your extra slots if you want to farm what's that? Sandbox anyway. So that's that. Okay, you can ignore that. This Sarudan's weapon, is it? Oh, Azazel's weapon. Yeah, you can ignore. You can technically reduce this to if you want. It looks kind of whatever. I don't think you're really losing out a lot. This is an event weapon. Yeah, you can ignore that. You can... What's this? Oh, event weapon. Yeah, you can ignore that. Class weapon you can ignore. I don't know who this is. Azusa Summer's weapon. Yeah, you can ignore that for now. This is another character's weapon. Clarice Valentine, you can ignore. Ignore this, and this is Grand Fidel's weapon. So I think I said that earlier during the Agonize part. This one, you only use 2 of them. Because, you know, it's like the same thing as like the previous other elements as well, where it caps out at 2, and any more than that is like a huge waste. So you just use 2. Yeah. So it's either use this with double primal, or you just go Agonize if you're not using double primal. Simple as that. Ignore that. This is Forte's weapon. It's fucking sad. You can ignore that. Heli's weapon is one of those weapons as well you can kind of fit in if you do not have like a second, say, Shalom Axe or something, because this gives you crit as well. And just so happen this is an axe as well, so it kind of helps out with the whole, you know, the whole X voltage thing with your PNS, right? So it's pretty handy to have as well. Ignore that, ignore this. I have no idea what the hell is this fucking duck looking thing. Is this an event weapon? Oh no. Summer Amira. You can ignore that as well. Who's this? What's this? Is this Zeta or something? Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, it's pretty shit. You can ignore that. This is Gran Ray. So you use this for main hand. Typically, I feel like you only use this for main hand. A lot of times you don't really use this weapon at all these days, so you can just kind of leave it aside for now. Don't reduce it though. Ignore all this. Oh yeah, so this is like the better... This is basically what people use instead of Gisla nowadays, this thing. This is basically the go-to, the much better Gisla nowadays. I think some people still use this. I think like 1 or 2 should be fine anyway. I'm not sure if there's people really using 3 of that. I don't think so. Seems kind of like a dumb idea, because that you really don't have space anyway for it, you know. For this one, you can ignore. What is this? Fiorito Holiday. Yeah. No full lumen break yet, but this one is okay. Yeah, so you can ignore that for now. This one is good to have if you're sliming, or if you're grinding and you have basically empty slots that you can actually put in like random stuff in your thing. Is really nice to have this weapon, just because that you can get like candy that allows you to use it to level up your characters. It's pretty handy. So especially if you're sliming out a lot, make sure you have this in your grid just so you can get lots and lots of candies. Xeno, I think I already explained it. This one, whatever. Ignore. Ultima, you can ignore. Alright, Unhail. This is Grand Fairy's weapon. So this is the weapon that people use if you want to go Ogi. You know? Outside of that, there's really no reason for you to use it at all. Nope. There's no reason for you to use this at all. So you can pretty much just ignore this. Just let it rot in your crate, and then if it slowly accumulates, and then you can combine it and make it in one. Excuse me. I think that's fine because there's no any reason for you to bar that at all. It's a waste. What is this? Ipatsu. Ignore. Ignore this. This is Summer Mag, I think. Yes, you can ignore that as well. This one is Kolulu. It's not so bad, but I think these days people don't really use this weapon as well. So you can typically ignore that too. Ignore that, ignore that. This one is fucking shit, ignore that. This one is Gomun weapon, ignore that. Militis I already explained. This one's whatever. Ignore that. What is this? I don't recognize this character. Oh, no wonder, because I don't have her. Yukata Ilza, you can ignore it anyway. Only the character is good for now. Zarwardo's weapon. So I explained in the previous videos that Zarwardo's weapon is probably only gonna be good when he gets his full limit break. For now, you probably want to sleep on it first, because we can only abuse that during arc when you use it in sandbox or whatnot. Outside of that, it's kind of useless. Xeno I already mentioned. This one I already mentioned. This is Gomun, you can ignore, and this is the other proving ground thing, which is also nice to have as like a main hand kind of thing, and having one of it definitely helps, so it's pretty good to have. And that's it. Dark is probably the shortest. Holy shit. Dark is probably the shortest just because I feel like a lot of the weapons are like, it's already set in stone, you know, and there's really not much to really say, because there's the other weapons is either you just use it as main hand, or you just, you know, you just get like the farmable ones and all here and there, and other than that, it's just you forget about it, you know. Alright, so I am done. I do apologize if I sound really tired, because it's already been 10 hours. I've been streaming for 10 hours. I'm kind of tired. And this is like the third one as well of the day. So I've been like talking for like non-stop for 2 hours already. I'm pretty fucking exhausted. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hopefully guys, you find this video series helpful. And hope to see you guys again next time. I'm not sure when is the next video, but I'm gonna try and see if I can put in more videos. For now, I wish you guys the best of luck in your grind, and I'll see you guys next time. Alright, make sure like, share, sub, all that good stuff. Alright, bye.